A lot of my teaching techniques relate to, in some way or another, reducing student anxiety, probably also in terms of reducing my own anxiety when I'm giving classes. And I've done some work around stagecraft, about how to present really in a way that engages students. And I've just started thinking, nothing as huge as the previous project, but I've just started thinking more about something called epistemic humility. When was the last time you heard an academic expert say on the news, say, "I don't know"? And when was the last time you heard a politician say it? But going back to Socrates, Kant, Hume, uncertainty is the normal condition in intellectual inquiry. And even when there isn't uncertainty on behalf of the individual expert, I guess that's most of us or all of us, there is still disagreement with other experts. And I think that's important to reflect in our teaching. Now, my own specialist teaching course is on conflict and the media. Sometimes the shorthand for that is called, it's a course in propaganda. Now, if you've ever tried to teach a course in propaganda, the moment you try and do it, the first thing anyone will do is that everyone will ask you to provide expert testimony on Ukraine, Iran, Gaza, what are the latest troop movements, who's going to win this particular war. And I've had to learn over time, I think correctly, to respond. Thank you, Brian, for a nice comment. I've had to learn to respond to this by saying that I am not a military expert. I'm not an area specialist. I'm not someone who knows about a particular area of a particular geographical area of the world. I'm a media specialist. Many students, now this is the key teaching point, I think, many students arrive at university believing that university is about acquiring the correct answers, and they fear looking foolish. And some students would rather say nothing in class than risk saying something imperfect. And my impression, and maybe some of you guys might have done research or reading to back this up, but I'm pretty sure that this fear is more pronounced at the stronger universities like ours. I think that reducing anxiety is absolutely vital to the learning process. You could call that empowerment. I'm more of a miserable person, so I say it's about reducing anxiety rather than empowering students. So with teaching these days, I tend to, thank you, Phoebe, I tend to advocate for what philosophers call epistemic humility. Now, I think it's really important to say that this isn't just about performing modesty or passivity. Epistemic humility also helps us to create puzzles. So why did intelligent people believe X, Y, or Z? Why did experts disagree? Why did a whole institution get something wrong? And the moment something becomes an intellectual puzzle, students stop trying to perform certainty and start trying to solve a problem together. And so what I've been trying to do, particularly over the last year or two, is to model strong manning opposing arguments, reconstructing viewpoints that I disagree with, changing my mind when the evidence warrants it, and sometimes saying, and I actually even put this in my course outline, I actually say, particularly for this one, maybe not for generic, for bigger first year courses, but for my specialist course, I say, this is a specialist subject of mine. If I don't know the answer, we'll find out together. This is not a recipe. This idea of being epistemically, having epistemic humility is not a recipe for paralysis or neutrality. We are all allowed an opinion, whether we're on the news or on the radio or in class. But there are plenty of occasions when experts were very wrong. The entire American intelligence apparatus failed to predict the demise of the Soviet Union, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the end of the Cold War. That's not because they were stupid. It was not because they were incompetent. It's because the future is genuinely difficult to predict. If institutions dedicated to understanding the world can miss something as large as the end of the Cold War, it should not surprise us that individual academics have limits too. I did a nice class a few years ago picking apart why I had been wrong for 2 decades by overestimating the likelihood of conflict between Russia and the West. And then a year later, of course, Russia invaded Ukraine, which didn't prove that I'd been right. It simply reminded me, and I hope the class, of how messy the real world can be. Students do not need lecturers who pretend to know everything. They need lecturers who are comfortable saying, let's find out. Thanks. And thanks for your kind comments as I was going along. It's like being heckled extremely friendlily.
You have been heckled with adoration.
It's just my own reflections on how my teaching has gone, but also particularly as my teaching ties to an interdisciplinary topic like propaganda. So if anyone is doing something out there which is interdisciplinary, and also particularly if it's controversial, and particularly if it involves predicting the future in some way, at some point you have to hold your hands up and say, look, I can't possibly know that. But how do you do that in an interesting way that still empowers students? I mean, I found when I started doing this more consciously a couple of years ago, I was finding one of the comments that students were saying towards the end of the course is, well, how can we know anything then? And it was a bit frustrating for them. And so I've been working the last couple of years to try and find ways of making that still an interesting thing where we still can know some answers. We still can be empowered to know and construct knowledge. So yeah, in answer to your question, Ellie, I'm not quite sure how to institutionalize that, but I guess I'm just sharing good practice that I've noticed. I'm trying to see the own.
Phoebe has got a question. Something that I was thinking while you were talking was that I wonder whether there is an element of, as you gain in confidence in your teaching, that you have more confidence to say, I don't know. And that perhaps for more of our early career staff, that it's still something that it takes time to have the power to do that, perhaps.
Yeah, I think as well, it's not just I don't know, it's also I can't know. Because a lot of this came out of a discussion that I saw between one of the most respected professors in the world in media, who had started to say crazy things. It's at New York University, and he'd started to say that the moon landings were faked and things like this. And he had a long discussion, a 3-hour discussion with a journalist who was basically picking him apart over epistemic humility, and saying, look, but you can't go into these other fields because you've not been trained sufficiently in that. You haven't done the work in those other fields. You don't know enough about space exploration and astronomy to be able to, and science to be able to do that. So yeah, that's just to broaden out the point a little bit.
Great that you're being really open about this, and I think more staff should be.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree. That's a really useful comment. Thank you.
And you've got even more comments in the chat. If you have time to have a minute to have a look over them, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Matthew. That's clearly provoked a lot of thought and a lot of engagement.
Brilliant.
Thank you. Next, we have another lightning talk from Stella